Boys and girls, today's our big day where we are going to be sewing on details onto our felt projects. Part of that's going to require you knowing how to sew, so I will be teaching you today. But if you look at this, you'll see that people have made small stitches to embellish, to tack down the felt, to add on realistic details. Super fun. So today you're going to choose your color of thread. They're going to be hanging along the wall, and you are going to pull the thread gently all the way down to where the toy bins are. At that point, you're going to cut it near the top of the spool and very carefully bring that thread back to your desk. Now, Mr. Heatdirks does not know how to thread a needle, but he's seen his mom do it enough times that he knows he should put it in his mouth and pinch his lips and pull it out. He is doing the try again, stab it, see how long it takes you technique. This is what most people do who haven't sewn a lot. They know that they should probably get it a little bit wet. They know that they should probably flatten it out. And they try until finally they will get it. A lot of people have been able to sew using that technique. You can use it too, but with these tips, it might go a little faster. This is called the tiny tail technique. It's where you pull it all the way, like where it's hardly coming out from between your two fingers, and then you just slide it on through. Once you got that little tail through there, you pull it through. This is called the little loop technique. You make the tiniest, babiest little loop right there, and then you line up the eye of the needle and just kind of it on. A lot of times there'll be just a little, maybe it's half in, half out, and if you use your fingernails, you can pull it out. Now, once you have the thread through the eye of the needle, you have one major accomplishment in your hat, if that makes sense. But now you need to tie a knot. So you're going to take the tail, hold on to it, and you're going to pull until the two ends of your thread are together. Now, you don't have to have them exactly together, like you'll notice in the video. I don't even have it exactly together, but you have those two ends together. Then on the other side, you're going to gently pull your needle so that it's nice and tight between where you're going to put your knot and your needle. Now you're going to be putting a knot at the end of the thread, not by the needle, but by the end of the thread. And in order to do that, a lot of kids have had trouble with it. So let me show you a few techniques. Basically, you need to get the end of your thread in a loop. You don't want to make the loop so big that you end up getting a knot right in the middle. You want to get that knot as far to the end as possible. So I'm making a loop towards the end of my two pieces of string, and somehow I have to get that tail through the hole. So I'm holding on to my loop now, and now I'm taking my finger and I'm just kind of tucking it through and then pulling. A lot of times it snaps back. Some people like to wrap it around two fingers and then put the tail through the hole. Sometimes even people like to have a partner where they ask the person to pull the tail through the little hole at the end. So like right here, you do it, and then right here you say, hey, friend of mine, would you be willing to grab that? However you want to do it is totally acceptable. You just need to get a knot on the end. Now, let's talk about sewing. Now's the fun part. You start from the back, and I want you to pretend that your needle is a dolphin jumping out of the water and then jumping back into the water. He's jumping out of the water. There he goes. Oh, he's so amazing. And he goes back down into the water. Never does he jump out of the pool and take a trip all the way around the embroidery hoop to the back. No, that would be weird. He's going to jump in and out of the water. Now, once you got that, there's a lot of things you can have it do. One is called the running stitch. It's kind of like a dotted line. People like to use this just to put around the edge of their project to make it a little decorative, to add some details in a spot that maybe doesn't have anything, to tack things down if they're making some designs or embellishments. Another one is called the single satin stitch. This is like a nice long line. And where do you need a nice long line? Well, maybe on the forehead, where pretty much all of our animals, if you look at them in real life, have a different contrasting color of fur or feathers there. And so you can add those details on there, just like you would use a marker to draw it if it was on paper. You're kind of drawing these lines, but now doing it with thread with a satin single stitch. You can use this for the forehead. You can use it to put on whiskers. You just have to, for whiskers, you just start by the nose, put it back in where you want your whisker to go, and just work your way back and forth, putting on those whiskers. It's nice to use a thread that's maybe contrasting. This one is pretty similar. Some kids had animals that were white and used black or dark gray. It's cute. And then you'll see that on my hedgehog here, I wanted to add a whole bunch of quills coming out of it. And so that worked out great too, to just like put those things in and out. Just keep running all the way around doing a single satin stitch. And you can see that this person used a single satin stitch on the eyebrows and around the ears and on the forehead. Now this is the whip stitch. The whip stitch is kind of like the running stitch, but now it's not a dotted line, it's like little lines all next to each other. People like to do this when they want to show off their stitching nicely. You can see it along the white face. They did it in gray. And that one is just where you come up and you go out, kind of like where you're missing the felt. So you come up on the felt and then you go down by the background. And that's a really pretty stitch as well. We're going to be learning a lot of stitches, but for today, we're just trying to learn some easy straight stitches, either doing the running stitch, whip stitch, or the satin single stitch. Now, just as a reminder, because we've had a lot of people struggle with this, when you start to sew, you start from the back. And a lot of people go, oh, well, that's great, but I don't even know where I'm coming up. And that's where, as you get better at sewing, you can kind of tell where you should be. But if you don't, you just kind of gently make these little stabs through the back of the fabric until you find the spot that you want it to come up. You only want to stab just a little bit, because if you stab the whole way, then it's hard to get the needle back. So last thing, you're going to be getting thread. You're going to make a loop with the two ends and put it through the hole. From there, we can work everything out. If you're struggling, it's going to work out great. Remember your stitches. There are examples on the table. Have a great time.